I, 26F, was sitting at my own rehearsal dinner. The room was filled with the happy chatter of my closest friends and family. My fiancé, Leo, was next to me. He squeezed my hand under the table. I felt a wave of pure happiness wash over me. This was it. Our life was about to begin. The dinner was at a cozy restaurant that Leo and I loved. Everything felt perfect. The lighting was warm, the food was delicious. People were laughing. My mother stood up to give a little speech. She tapped her glass with a fork. The room quieted down. I smiled at her, expecting a sweet, motherly toast. She had been difficult during the wedding planning, but I hoped tonight would be different. I hoped she would finally just be happy for me. "I'm so glad to see everyone here," she started. Her voice was smooth and practiced. "It means the world to see my daughter, Clara. So happy." I felt a small prickle of unease. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. It was a smile I knew well. It was her public smile, the one she used when she was about to say something she knew would cause a stir. "And in the spirit of celebrating Clara's happiness, past and present," she continued, her eyes locking onto mine, "I decided to bring a guest who has been a very important part of her journey. My +1 for the wedding tomorrow is Julian." The name hung in the air. Julian. My ex. The man who had torn my world apart 3 years ago. I felt the blood drain from my face. I could hear a ringing in my ears. It felt like the whole room had gone silent, but I knew it was just me. I was frozen. Leo's hand tightened around mine. "What did she just say?" he whispered. I couldn't answer. I just stared at my mother. She was still smiling, that polished, empty smile. She looked proud of herself. She had dropped a bomb and was enjoying the shockwave. My throat felt tight. "You did what?" I managed to say. My voice was a choked whisper. My mother's smile widened slightly. "I invited Julian," she said, as if she were announcing she brought a bottle of wine. "He was so thrilled to be included. He sends his best." I felt a hot surge of anger mixed with the cold shock. This wasn't just a thoughtless act. This was a deliberate, cruel move. She knew what Julian had done to me. She knew the months it took for me to stop crying, the years it took to feel whole again. "Why?" I asked. The word came out louder than I expected. A few heads turned. "Clara, darling, don't make a scene," she said, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. "It's a celebration. Julian was a big part of your life. It's only right that he's here to see you move on." It felt like a slap. My own mother was using my wedding to humiliate me. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. "How could you?" I said, my voice shaking. "Of all people, Mom, you know what he did." Leo stood up with me. He put a protective arm around my waist. "Maybe you should explain yourself," Leo said to my mother. His voice was calm, but it had a hard edge I had never heard before. My mother's smile finally faltered. She looked from me to Leo. "I don't need to explain myself," she said, her tone turning defensive. "I am the mother of the bride. I am allowed a guest. It is my right." "It's my wedding," I shot back. "It's our wedding. And you do not have the right to bring the man who broke my heart and my spirit to watch me get married." My father, who had been sitting silently beside her, finally spoke. Now, let's all calm down," he said, not looking at anyone in particular. "I'm sure your mother meant well." He always did this. He always tried to smooth things over, to pretend her cruelty was just a misunderstanding. His weakness felt like a second betrayal. I looked at him. "Meant well?" I asked, my voice incredulous. "She meant to hurt me. And you're just going to sit there and let her?" He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Clara, please. This is not the time or the place." "This is exactly the time and place," Leo said, his voice firm. He looked directly at my mother. "You will uninvite him. He is not welcome tomorrow." My mother scoffed, a real, ugly sound. "You don't get to tell me who I can and cannot bring." she said to Leo. I knew Julian long before you came along. He's practically family. The words practically family echoed in my head. She had always said that. Even when Julian and I were breaking up, she had taken his side. She had told me I was being too sensitive, that I was throwing away a good man. She had mourned the end of our relationship more than I had. I felt a sudden, chilling clarity. This wasn't about me moving on. This was about her. She was still clinging to the life she had imagined for me, with the man she had chosen for me. No, I said. My voice was steady now. The shaking had stopped, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. He is not family. He is my past. And he will not be at my wedding. My mother laughed. And how do you plan to stop me? She asked. Are you going to have me thrown out of your wedding, Clara? Your own mother? The challenge was clear. She was daring me. She was so sure of her power over me, so certain that I would back down, just like I always had. I looked at Leo. He gave me a small, firm nod. He was with me. I wasn't alone in this fight. I turned back to my mother. If Julian shows up tomorrow, I said, my voice low and even, you will both be asked to leave. The entire table went silent. My aunt and uncle were staring with wide eyes. My cousins looked mortified. My father just looked down at his plate. My mother's face contorted with rage. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. Try me, I said. Then I took Leo's hand, and we walked out of the restaurant, leaving the wreckage of my rehearsal dinner behind us. The happy chatter was gone. All that was left was the echo of her threat and my promise. The battle for my wedding day had just begun. We didn't speak as we walked to the car. The cool night air felt good on my hot cheeks. My hands were still trembling, but not from fear anymore. It was anger. A deep, solid anger that was burning away years of quiet resentment. Once we were inside the car, Leo turned to me. Are you okay? He asked softly. I shook my head. No, I whispered. I'm not okay. I can't believe she did that. I can, he said grimly. She's been testing your boundaries for months. This is just the biggest test yet. He was right. She had criticized my choice of dress, calling it not traditional enough. She had complained about the venue, saying it was too modern. She had tried to add her own friends to the guest list, people I barely knew. Each time I had pushed back gently, trying to keep the peace. I had given in on small things to avoid a major fight. I saw now that every concession had just emboldened her. What are we going to do? I asked, the weight of it all crashing down on me. She's not going to back down. She'll bring him just to prove that she can. Then we do exactly what you said, Leo replied, his voice solid and sure. We have them removed. But how? I asked. It's my own mother. The security guards are for the venue, not for my family drama. The thought of such a public, ugly scene on my wedding day made me feel sick. We'll talk to the wedding planner in the morning, he said. We'll hire our own security. We'll give them photos of your mom and Julian. We'll tell them they are not to be admitted under any circumstances. It sounded so extreme. Hiring security to keep my own mother out of my wedding. But what other choice did I have? Let her walk all over me? Let her ruin the most important day of my life with the ghost of my painful past? She'll make a huge scene at the door, I said, imagining it. She'll scream and cry and tell everyone that her own daughter has barred her from the wedding. Let her, Leo said, his jaw tight. Let everyone see exactly who she is. This isn't about you being cruel, Clara. This is about you protecting yourself. This is about us starting our marriage on our own terms. Not hers. Tears welled up in my eyes, but they were tears of gratitude. He understood. He wasn't telling me to calm down or to make peace. He was ready to go to war for me. Okay, I whispered. Okay, we'll do it. He started the car and we drove home in silence. The perfect evening was shattered. The joy was gone, replaced by anxiety and a grim sense of determination. My wedding was less than 24 hours away, and I was preparing for a fight with my own mother. When we got back to our apartment, I couldn't sit still. I paced the living room, my mind racing. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother's smug face. I heard her say, "He's practically family." Leo made me a cup of tea. "Try to rest," he said gently. "We have a big day tomorrow in more ways than one." I sat on the couch and held the warm mug, but I couldn't drink. "She's always been like this, you know," I said quietly. "She's always seen me as an extension of herself, not as my own person. When I was with Julian, she loved the way it looked. He came from a family with money. He was handsome. She could brag about him to her friends. It didn't matter that he was controlling. It didn't matter that he made me feel small. And when I finally got the courage to leave him," I continued, "she was furious. Not for me, but for her. She told me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. She stayed in touch with him. She would tell me things about him, how well he was doing, who he was dating. It was like she was trying to make me regret it." "She sounds like a narcissist," Leo said, sitting next to me. I had never put that word to it before, but as soon as he said it, it clicked. Everything was about her. My achievements were her achievements. My failures were her embarrassments. My wedding wasn't about my happiness. It was a stage for her drama. "I think you're right," I said. "And I think this is her last, desperate attempt to pull me back into her orbit, to prove she still has control over my life." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my cousin, Sarah. She had been at the dinner, sitting at the far end of the table. The text read, "Are you okay? That was insane. I need to tell you something." My heart pounded. I quickly typed back, "I'm not okay. What is it?" A moment later, another text came through. "I don't want to text it. Can you talk?" I looked at Leo. "It's my cousin Sarah. She says she needs to tell me something." "Call her," he said immediately. I hit the call button and put the phone on speaker. Sarah answered on the first ring. "Clara, are you home?" she asked, her voice low and rushed. "Yes, I'm here with Leo," I said. "What's wrong? What happened after we left?" "It got ugly," Sarah said. "Your mom started yelling about how ungrateful you are. Your dad just tried to get her to quiet down. But that's not what I need to tell you." She paused and I held my breath. "After your mom made her little announcement," Sarah continued, "I saw her step away to take a phone call. I was on my way to the restroom and I overheard a little bit of it. She was talking to Julian." My stomach twisted into a knot. "What did she say?" She was whispering, but I heard her say, "Everything is set for tomorrow. Just do what we talked about," during the toasts. "It's the perfect time." The air left my lungs. "During the toasts?" I repeated numbly. "Yeah," Sarah said. And then she said something like, "She won't know what hit her. Just follow the plan." Clara, it sounded planned. Like, really planned. This wasn't just her bringing a guest. This is some kind of plot. Leo and I looked at each other, our eyes wide with shock. A plot. It sounded so dramatic, but it fit. My mother wasn't just being thoughtless. She was actively planning to sabotage my wedding. She was coordinating with my abusive ex to create a scene during the toasts. "Sarah, are you sure?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm positive," she said. "It gave me chills. That's why I had to call you. I'm so sorry, Clara. I don't know what they're planning, but it's not good." Suddenly, a new text message notification popped up on my screen. It was from Sarah again. It was a screenshot. "What is this?" I asked, my finger hovering over the image. After she got off the phone, she was texting. Sarah explained. I was walking back to the table and I glanced over her shoulder. "I'm sorry, I know it's snooping, but I had a bad feeling." I snapped a picture of her screen. It's a text she sent to Julian right after the call. I opened the image. My blood ran cold. It was a message from my mom to a contact named Julian. It read, "Everything is set for tomorrow. She took the bait and is furious. Perfect. Remember, wait for my signal during the toasts. She won't know what hit her. Just follow the plan. This is our last chance to fix her mistake." To fix her mistake. My marriage to Leo was a mistake she intended to fix. I felt a wave of nausea. This was premeditated. This was a conspiracy between my mother and my ex-boyfriend to ruin my wedding day. The cruelty of it was staggering. It was beyond anything I could have imagined. "Thank you, Sarah," I said, my voice hollow. "Thank you for telling me." "Of course," she said. "Be careful, Clara. I think your mom has lost her mind." We hung up the phone. I stared at the screenshot, reading the words over and over. She took the bait. My reaction at the dinner wasn't just a consequence of her actions. It was part of her plan. She wanted me to be angry and upset. "Leo," I said, looking up at him. My shock was hardening into a diamond-hard rage. "They are planning to ambush me. At my own wedding reception." Leo took the phone from my hand and read the text. His face, which had been tight with anger, went completely cold. It was the look he got when he was dealing with a serious problem at work. It was his problem-solving face. "Okay," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Okay, this changes things." "It changes everything," I agreed. "This isn't just about keeping them out. This is war." He stood up and began to pace, just as I had been doing moments before. "She wants a scene during the toasts," he said, thinking out loud. "She wants to humiliate you publicly. She wants to create a moment so dramatic that it casts a shadow over our marriage forever. Maybe she thinks you'll call it off. Or that I'll be so distraught I'll run back to... who? Julian? Her?" I shook my head in disbelief. "The logic is insane." "It's not about logic," Leo said. "It's about control. She's losing control over you and she's trying to burn everything down on her way out." He stopped pacing and looked at me. "So we don't just block them from the wedding, we let them in." I stared at him. "What?" "Leo, no. That's the last thing I want." "Hear me out," he said, his eyes intense. "They have a plan that relies on the element of surprise. But now, we know the plan. The surprise is gone. And that gives us the advantage." He knelt in front of me. "They want to create a scene during the toasts, so we let them. But we control the scene. We turn their ambush into our own." A slow, dangerous idea began to form in my mind. He was right. Running and hiding wasn't the answer. Barring her from the door would just create a different kind of scene, one where she could still play the victim. But if we let her walk into her own trap? "What are you thinking?" I asked. "I'm thinking we need to find out what the real plan is," he said. "Why is she so desperate? Why does she need to fix your mistake so badly? It feels like there's something more to this than just her not liking me." I thought back to my earlier conversation with him, the things I had said about my mother, the way she always cared about appearances, about money. And then a memory surfaced. Something my grandmother had said to me years ago. My grandmother, my mom's mother, had passed away 5 years ago. She and I were very close. She had never liked the way my mother treated me. Before she died, she had pulled me aside. "I've made sure you'll be taken care of, Clara," she had told me. "I've set something aside for you. Your mother will oversee it, but it's for you, for when you start your own life properly." At the time, I was young and didn't think much of it. I assumed it was a small inheritance that I would get someday. After her death, my mother had mentioned a trust fund, but she was always vague about the details. She said it was complicated and that I would get it when the time was right. "Leo," I said slowly, a dreadful suspicion blooming in my chest. "My grandmother. She left me some money in a trust. My mother is the executor." Leo's eyes sharpened. "The executor? Meaning she controls it?" Yes, I said. She told me the money would be released to me upon my suitable marriage. I always thought that was just a weird, old-fashioned phrase from the will. But what if it's not? Leo pressed. What if suitable marriage is a legal condition? And what if your mother gets to decide what's suitable? We stared at each other as the horrifying implications sank in. She never liked Julian's personality, I said, thinking back, but she loved his family's status. She called him a good provider. She probably thought he was the definition of suitable. And me? Leo asked. I'm a teacher. I don't come from money. She's probably decided that I am not suitable. So if I marry you, I finished, the words tasting like poison. I meet the condition of marriage, but in her eyes, it's not a suitable one. But a legal marriage is a legal marriage. The condition would be met. The trust would have to be turned over to me. Unless, Leo said, his voice grim, the wedding doesn't happen. There it was. The motive. It wasn't just about her ego or her preference for Julian. It was about money. A lot of money. My grandmother had been wealthy. She's not just trying to ruin my wedding, I said, the full weight of the betrayal hitting me like a physical blow. She's trying to stop me from getting my inheritance. But why? Why would she need the money? And then another, darker thought occurred to me. Leo, I whispered, what if the money isn't there? What if she's been using it? The silence in the room was heavy. The idea was monstrous, that my own mother would not only steal from me, but would also orchestrate a cruel emotional attack to cover her tracks. We need proof, Leo said, his voice like steel. We need to know for sure. But how? I asked. The wedding is tomorrow. We don't have time to hire lawyers and accountants. Maybe we don't need to, he said. He pulled out his laptop. My brother's best friend is a forensic accountant. A very good one. He owes me a favor. It's almost midnight, but for me, he'll answer. My heart started to race. This was happening so fast. An hour ago, I was celebrating. Now, I was about to uncover a potential crime committed by my own mother. Leo made the call. He was calm and direct. Mark, it's Leo. I have a situation. It's an emergency. I need you to look into a trust fund. It's my fiancé's. Her mother is the executor. We have reason to believe there have been unauthorized withdrawals. He listened for a moment. I know it's late, but the wedding is tomorrow. We think her mother is planning to sabotage it to prevent the trust from being transferred. We need to know if we're right. Anything, even a preliminary look. Can you do it? There was another pause. I watched Leo's face, searching for a clue. He nodded. I'm sending you the details now, he said. Clara's full name, her mother's name, her grandmother's name. That's all we have. Thank you, Mark. I owe you more than one. He hung up and looked at me. He's on it, he said. He said he can run a preliminary check for major transfers or red flags. He'll call us back in a few hours. A few hours. In a few hours, I would know if my mother was just a cruel narcissist, or if she was a thief as well. We sat in the quiet apartment, waiting. The excitement for my wedding day had curdled into a knot of dread and suspense. We didn't talk much. There was nothing left to say until we knew the truth. I tried to think about my dress hanging in the closet, the flowers that would be delivered in the morning, the vows I would say to Leo. But all I could see was that text message. This is our last chance to fix her mistake. Around 3 a.m., Leo's phone rang. It was Mark. Leo put it on speaker again. Leo, I've got something, Mark said. His voice was tired but serious. This is not good. My stomach clenched. What did you find? Leo asked. I found the trust, Mark said. It was established 5 years ago. The beneficiary is Clara. The executor is her mother, Patricia. The condition for transfer of control is Clara's legal marriage. Your theory was spot on. He took a breath. I ran a check on the account's activity for the last 3 years. Leo, there are dozens of withdrawals. Large ones. Wire transfers to accounts that have nothing to do with Clara's expenses. They went to credit card companies, a car loan financing group, and several high-end retail stores. I felt faint. Leo grabbed my hand. "How much?" Leo asked, his voice tight. "I'm still calculating the exact total," Mark said, "but from my quick look, it's over $200,000. $200,000. The number seemed impossibly large. My mother had stolen over $200,000 from me, from the money my grandmother had left to protect me. She's been using it as her personal piggy bank," Mark continued, "and the withdrawals got bigger and more frequent over the last year. She was probably getting desperate. Once you two are married, the bank would have to notify Clara that she is the new controller of the account. An audit would be inevitable. She would be exposed." It all made a horrible kind of sense. The sabotage wasn't just to stop me from marrying Leo. It was to stop the wedding, any wedding, from happening. It was to keep me unmarried so she would never have to give up control of the trust. So her theft would never be discovered. Julian wasn't the goal. He was just a tool. A means to create chaos and emotional distress so profound that it might actually stop the wedding. "Mark, can you send us a summary of what you found?" Leo asked. "Something simple. A list of the withdrawals and where they went." "Already on it," Mark said. "I'll email it to you in 5 minutes. Leo, this is grand larceny. You need to go to the police." "We will," Leo said. "But first we have a wedding to get through." "What are you going to do?" Mark asked. Leo looked at me. His eyes were filled with a protective fury. "My fiancé's mother wanted to make a toast," he said. "I think we're going to let her. And then we're going to give one of our own." After we got off the phone with Mark, the email arrived. It was a simple document, but its contents were devastating. A list of dates, transfer amounts, and recipients. Thousands to a cruise line. Tens of thousands to pay off credit card debt. A large payment to a luxury car dealership. It was a map of my mother's secret life, funded by my inheritance. I stared at the numbers, feeling a strange sense of detachment. The pain was so immense it was almost numb. My own mother. She had looked me in the eye for years, pretending to be my mother, all while stealing from my future. The criticism, the control, the constant undermining of my confidence, it all clicked into place. She needed me to feel small. She needed me to be dependent. An independent, happily married daughter was her biggest threat. "So this is the plan," Leo said, pulling me out of my daze. He had a notepad and a pen. The teacher in him was coming out. He was making a lesson plan for my mother's downfall. "1," he said, writing it down. "We do nothing. We pretend we don't know. We get ready for our wedding day as if everything is normal." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. "2," he continued. "We let your mother and Julian come to the wedding. We let them come to the reception. We make sure they're seated, comfortable, and feeling confident that their little plan is working." "How can I look at her?" I whispered. "How can I smile and pretend?" "You're stronger than she thinks," he said, taking my hand. "That's her biggest mistake. She still sees you as the little girl she could manipulate. Tomorrow, you show her the woman you've become. You just have to hold it together for a few hours." I took a deep breath. He was right. I could do this. For him. For me. For my grandmother. 3, he went on. "The toasts, the maid of honor goes. The best man goes. Then the MC will call up your mother. We'll let her walk up to the microphone. We'll let her signal for Julian. We'll let her believe she has her moment." The image made my stomach turn, but I listened. "And just as she's about to speak," he said, his eyes glinting, "I will interrupt. I will take the microphone and say that we have a special announcement to make first." He looked at the summary from Mark. "We'll have this document ready. I'll connect my phone to the projector. The same one we're using for the photo slideshow. Instead of pictures of us as kids, the entire room will see this." He tapped the list of stolen funds. "We expose her," I said, the words feeling powerful on my tongue. in front of everyone. Her friends, our family, everyone she's been lying to. We expose her, he confirmed. We tell them about the money. We tell them about the plot to sabotage our wedding. We turn her public triumph into her public humiliation. The plan was audacious. It was dramatic. It was also perfect. It was a response crafted in the same language of public spectacle that she herself had chosen. She wanted a scene. We would give her one she would never forget. What about Julian? I asked. He's a pawn, Leo said dismissively. Once the truth about the money comes out, his part in the drama will seem pathetic and desperate. He'll be humiliated right along with her. And my dad? The thought of him made me ache. He made his choice when he sat there and said nothing. Leo said gently but firmly. He'll have to face the consequences of his silence. We spent the next hour finalizing the details. Leo called our wedding planner, a wonderfully efficient woman named Maria. We woke her up, but she was immediately on board when Leo explained the situation in clipped, urgent tones. A mother trying to sabotage her own daughter's wedding? Maria said, her voice sharp with disbelief and professional outrage. Unacceptable. What do you need? We need you to make sure the projector is ready for a phone hookup near the head table, Leo said. And the toast schedule. We need you to make sure it goes exactly as planned. Maid of honor, best man, then Patricia. Consider it done, Maria said. And the security we discussed earlier? You still want them? Yes, I chimed in. But their instructions have changed. They are not to stop my mother or her guest. They are to let them in. But they should be ready to escort them out when we give the signal. What's the signal? Maria asked. Leo looked at me. The signal will be when the bride gets her happily ever after, he said. There was a pause on the line. I love it, Maria said with feeling. Don't you worry about a thing. You two go get married. I'll handle the stage. Hanging up, I felt a flicker of the joy I was supposed to be feeling. We had a plan. We had a team. We were taking back control. We tried to get a few hours of sleep, but it was useless. We just lay in bed, holding hands in the dark. The sun would be up soon. It would be my wedding day. Are you scared? I whispered to him. No, he said. I'm angry. But mostly I'm just proud of you. And I can't wait to marry you. He was my rock. He was my partner. He was everything Julian wasn't. He was everything my mother couldn't see. When morning came, I went through the motions in a haze. My maid of honor, Jess, arrived with coffee and bagels. She knew something was wrong the moment she saw my face. What is it? She asked, her cheerful mood evaporating. What did your mom do now? Leo and I shared a look. We had decided not to tell anyone else, to keep the circle of knowledge as small as possible. The shock in the room needed to be genuine. She's just being my mom, I said, forcing a weak smile. Wedding jitters, I guess. Jess looked skeptical but didn't push. She was a good friend. She helped me with my hair and makeup, chattering about the day to fill the tense silence. I felt like an actress in a play, putting on my costume, preparing for my role. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart leaped, thinking it was my mother or Julian or my father calling to try and reason with me. But there was nothing. Just silence. It was the calm before the storm. When I finally put on my wedding dress, I looked at myself in the mirror. I had dreamed of this moment my whole life. I thought I would be crying with joy. Instead, I felt a cold, steely resolve. The dress wasn't just a wedding gown anymore. It was armor. Leo and I had decided to ride to the venue together. It wasn't traditional, but we needed to be a united front from the very beginning. When he saw me in my dress, he didn't say anything. He just walked over and wrapped his arms around me, holding me tight. You look beautiful, he whispered into my hair. And you look strong. I'm ready, I whispered back. The ceremony was a blur. We stood in front of our friends and family in a beautiful garden and said our vows. I looked into Leo's eyes, and for those few minutes, the world outside fell away. There was no mother, no Julian, no stolen money. There was only him and our promise. When he kissed me, the applause from our guests felt like a shield, protecting us. We were married. We were a team. Now it was time to face the enemy. The reception was held in a large, elegant ballroom at the same venue. As we walked in, announced as husband and wife, I scanned the room. And there they were, sitting at a table near the back with some of my mother's friends. My mother, beaming, dressed in a garish, attention-seeking gold dress. And beside her, Julian. He looked older, but otherwise the same. The same smug smile, the same arrogant posture. He caught my eye and gave me a small, knowing nod, as if we were sharing a secret. My stomach churned. He had no idea what was coming. My mother saw me looking. She raised her champagne glass in a mock toast, her smile dripping with false sweetness. I just stared back at her, my face a blank mask. I would not give her the satisfaction of another emotional reaction. Leo squeezed my hand. "Showtime," he murmured. We spent the next hour mingling, accepting congratulations and smiling for photos. It was the hardest acting I've ever had to do. I could feel my mother's eyes on me the entire time, watching, waiting. I avoided her table completely. I talked to my aunt, my cousins, my friends. I even had a brief, awkward conversation with my father. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," he said, his eyes full of a sad, guilty shame. "Thank you, Dad," I said, my voice polite but distant. "Your mother, she's just," he stammered, trying to find an excuse for her. "I know what she is," I said, cutting him off. "And so do you." I walked away, leaving him standing there. The time for his excuses was over. Finally, the clinking of a glass signaled that the toasts were about to begin. My heart began to hammer against my ribs. This was it. Maria, our planner, was acting as the MC. She was flawless. "And now it's time for a few words from some very special people," she announced cheerfully. "First, let's hear from the maid of honor, the beautiful Jess." Jess gave a sweet, funny toast about our long friendship. I laughed and smiled, playing my part. Next was Leo's best man, who told some embarrassing stories about their college days. The room was warm and full of laughter. It was a perfect wedding reception. An illusion, but a perfect one. Then Maria stepped back up to the microphone. "And now," she said, her voice bright, "a very special toast from the mother of the bride, Patricia." A polite round of applause went through the room. I watched as my mother stood up. She preened for a moment, soaking in the attention. She looked over at Julian and gave him a subtle nod. He started to rise from his chair. This was her signal. This was the moment they had planned. But before my mother could take a single step toward the microphone, Leo stood up. He was holding his own microphone, one that Maria had discreetly placed at our table. "Thank you, Maria," Leo said, his voice ringing through the ballroom. The sound system was excellent. "And thank you, Patricia. But actually, before my wonderful new mother-in-law gives her toast, my wife and I have a special announcement and a few thank yous of our own to make." My mother froze. This was not part of her script. She looked confused, then annoyed. Julian sank back into his chair, looking uncertain. Leo smiled, a wide, charming smile that didn't reach his eyes. "First, I want to thank all of you for being here to celebrate with us. It means the world." He paused, and his eyes found my mother's. "And we want to give a very, very special thank you to my mother-in-law, Patricia. She has gone to truly extraordinary lengths to make this day memorable." The room was silent. Everyone was listening intently. My mother's confused expression was slowly being replaced by one of suspicion. "She's been so involved," Leo continued, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "So concerned with Clara's future. So concerned, in fact, that she has been personally managing a trust fund left to Clara by her grandmother." I saw my father flinch. My mother's face went rigid. It's a fund that Clara was to receive upon her suitable marriage, Leo said, letting the words hang in the air. And Patricia, as the executor, has been watching over it so diligently. So diligently, in fact, that we felt we had to thank her publicly for her creative management. As he said this, Leo tapped his phone. On the large projector screen behind us, where photos of our childhood had been moments before, a new image appeared. It was the document from Mark. A simple black and white spreadsheet. The title was clear: Summary of Unauthorized Withdrawals from the Clara Evans Trust. A collective gasp went through the room. The spreadsheet was huge on the screen. The dates, the amounts, the names of the cruise lines, the car dealerships, the credit card companies. My mother stared at the screen, her face turning a ghastly shade of pale. The blood had completely drained from her face. It seems, Leo said, his voice now cold and hard, that while Patricia was so worried about Clara making a suitable choice, she was helping herself to over $200,000 of Clara's inheritance. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. People were turning to stare at my mother, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and horror. Her friends at the table were leaning away from her as if she were contagious. But that's not all, Leo said, his voice rising. When she realized that our marriage would mean she would lose control of the fund and her theft would be discovered, she came up with a plan. He turned his gaze to the back of the room, to the table where Julian was sitting. Julian looked like a cornered animal. She decided the wedding had to be stopped, Leo announced, so she invited a guest, an unwelcome guest from my wife's past. He pointed directly at Julian. She conspired with him to cause a scene here tonight. To disrupt the toasts, to humiliate my wife, to create so much chaos and pain that our wedding day would be ruined, all to cover up her crimes. He held up his phone again. And we have the proof of that too. On the screen, the spreadsheet was replaced by the screenshot of my mother's text to Julian. She took the bait. Perfect. Remember, wait for my signal during the toasts. This is our last chance to fix her mistake. The silence in the room was now absolute. It was a heavy, suffocating silence. The evidence was undeniable. It was all there, projected for everyone to see. My mother opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She just stood there, exposed, stripped of all her lies, her public image shattered in an instant. Then she found her voice. "It's a lie," she shrieked, her voice high and shrill. "They're lying. They faked all of this." But no one was looking at us. They were all looking at her, at the desperate, cornered expression on her face, at the undeniable proof on the screen. "Are we, Patricia?" I asked, speaking for the first time. I stood up and took the microphone from Leo. I looked at my mother, not with anger or with pain, but with a kind of pity. "Are we lying about the money you stole? Are we lying about the text message you sent? Are we lying about your plan to ruin my wedding?" I looked at Julian. "Were you in on it, Julian? Were you going to stand up and object or make some grand, romantic speech to win me back? Was that the plan?" Julian turned beet red. He looked from me to my mother, then down at the floor. He didn't say a word. His silence was a confession. My mother started to scream again, a string of incoherent denials and accusations. "She's ungrateful. She's always been ungrateful. I gave her everything." At that moment, two discreet but very large men in dark suits appeared at her side. Our security. Maria had timed it perfectly. "Ma'am," one of them said in a low, firm voice, "I think it's time for you to leave." "You can't do this to me," she shrieked, trying to pull her arm away. "This is my daughter's wedding." "Not anymore," I said into the microphone, my voice clear and steady for the whole room to hear. The guards began to escort her out. She was still screaming, calling me names, accusing Leo of brainwashing me. It was an ugly, pathetic spectacle. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling around her, and she was coming apart with it. As they passed Julian's table, she pointed a trembling finger at him. "And you were supposed to help me. You useless boy. The second guard tapped Julian on the shoulder. You too, sir, he said calmly. Julian didn't protest. He just stood up, his face a mask of shame, and allowed himself to be let out, following the screeching mess of the woman whose puppet he had almost been. The room was silent as the doors swung shut behind them. The drama was over. All that was left was the quiet, stunned aftermath. I looked at my father. He was sitting alone at his table, his face buried in his hands. He didn't look up. Then I looked at Leo. My husband. He put his arm around me and I leaned my head on his shoulder, letting out a breath I felt like I had been holding for years. The room was still silent. No one knew what to say or do. The festive mood was gone. Then my cousin Sarah stood up. She raised her glass. To Clara and Leo, she said, her voice ringing with conviction. For showing us what true partnership and strength looks like. To the happy couple. Slowly, then all at once, others joined in. Jess raised her glass. Leo's parents. My aunts and uncles. Soon the whole room was standing, glasses raised. To Clara and Leo, they echoed. Tears streamed down my face, but this time they were tears of relief, of release, of a profound, cleansing victory. The applause that followed was not for a wedding. It was for a liberation. My liberation. The party didn't exactly resume. The band didn't start playing upbeat music. The mood had shifted from celebration to something more somber, more real. People came up to our table in small groups, offering quiet words of support. My aunt, my mother's sister, came over first. Her eyes were red. Clara, I am so sorry, she whispered, hugging me tightly. I had no idea. I never could have imagined. It's not your fault, Aunt Carol, I said, hugging her back. She was always so concerned with appearances. Carol continued, pulling away and shaking her head. But this is monstrous. Stealing from you, trying to ruin your wedding? I don't even know who she is anymore. I saw then that the betrayal wasn't just mine. My mother had betrayed everyone who had ever believed her facade. I don't think we ever really knew her, I replied quietly. Leo's parents were next. His mother, a warm, kind woman who had welcomed me into her family without reservation, took both of my hands in hers. You are my daughter now, she said, her voice thick with emotion. And we will protect you. I am so proud of how you both handled that. You were strong and you were right. Leo's father clapped him on the shoulder. Son, you picked a fighter, he said with a grim smile. Good for you. Their support felt like a solid wall around me. This was family. Not the twisted, conditional love I had grown up with, but real, unconditional support. After about an hour, the guests began to leave. The day had been too emotionally draining for a long night of dancing. Each person who left gave me a hug, a squeeze of the hand. A look of sympathy and respect. There was no judgment, only support. Maria, our wedding planner, came over to the head table. The caterers are packing up the leftovers for you, she said softly. And the guards have confirmed that Patricia and Julian are off the property. They caused a bit of a scene in the parking lot, but it's over now. Thank you, Maria, I said, feeling a deep wave of gratitude. You were amazing. We couldn't have done this without you. It was my honor, she said, her professional demeanor softening. In 10 years of planning weddings, I've never seen anything like it. You two are a force to be reckoned with. Finally, only a few people remained. Me, Leo, Jess, and his best man. We were sitting around the empty ballroom, the beautiful decorations now looking a bit like a set after the play has ended. Jess came and sat next to me. Okay, she said. Now you have to tell me everything. From the beginning. So, we told her. We told her about the rehearsal dinner, the text from Sarah, the late-night call to the forensic accountant, and the horrifying discovery of the stolen money. Jess listened, her expression shifting from shock to fury. That witch. she breathed when we were done. I always knew she was a piece of work, but I never thought she was an actual criminal. And to use Julian? That pathetic loser. He was just a tool, Leo said. A convenient, emotionally charged weapon. Well, you two disarmed her pretty spectacularly, Jess said, shaking her head in amazement. Projecting her bank robbing receipts onto the wall? That's a level of revenge I can only dream of. We managed a small laugh. It felt good to laugh. As we were getting ready to leave, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered, putting it on speaker. Clara? A man's voice said. It was my father. He must have been calling from a friend's phone. What do you want? I asked, my voice flat. I'm at a hotel, he said, his voice sounding broken. Your mother, she's not well. She's beside herself. She's beside herself because she got caught, I said coldly. Not because she's sorry. Clara, please, he begged. She's your mother. You can't just do this to her. We're a family. No, we are a family, I said, gesturing to Leo and Jess. You and Mom stopped being my family the moment you decided her crimes were more important than my happiness and safety. You sat there at the rehearsal dinner and said nothing. You enabled her. You chose her. So you can stay with her. There was a long, choked silence on the other end of the line. What am I supposed to do? He finally whispered, a question full of self-pity. That's not my problem anymore, Dad, I said. You should have thought about that when you watched her steal from me for years. You should have thought about that when you let her plot to ruin my wedding. You have to live with your choices, and I have to live with mine. I hung up the phone. I didn't feel sadness or guilt. I just felt empty. The final tie to my old life, my old family, had been cut. Leo wrapped his arm around me. You did the right thing, he said. I know, I said. And I did. For the first time, I had chosen myself. The next morning, Leo and I woke up in our hotel suite. The sun was streaming through the windows. For a moment, I had forgotten everything, and I was just a new bride waking up next to her husband. Then, the events of the previous day came rushing back. But instead of the anxiety and dread I had been feeling, there was a strange sense of peace. It was over. The secrets were out. The poison had been drained. We ordered room service and sat in bed, eating pancakes and talking about the future. Not the immediate future of lawsuits and family fallout, but our future. Our honeymoon, the house we wanted to buy, the life we were going to build together. A life free from my mother's shadow. Later that day, we met with a lawyer Leo's firm recommended. We gave her the document from Mark, the screenshot of the text, and a list of witnesses from the wedding. The lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Ms. Davis, reviewed everything. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of fraud and theft I've ever seen, she said, looking at me with sympathy. And the evidence of the conspiracy to cause emotional distress at the wedding will only strengthen our case. What happens now? I asked. We file a police report for the theft, she explained. Given the amount, this is a felony. The district attorney will likely press charges. We also file a civil suit to recover the stolen funds and any damages. And we will immediately file for an emergency court order to have you instated as the sole controller of the trust, given the executor's criminal behavior. It sounded so official, so serious. Will she go to jail? I asked quietly. Ms. Davis looked at me frankly. For this amount of money? It's a very real possibility, yes. Especially since the crime involves a breach of fiduciary duty to a family member. Judges don't look kindly on that. The thought of my mother in jail was a strange one. It wasn't what I had aimed for. My goal was to stop her, to expose her, to free myself. But I knew it was a just consequence for her actions. She had built her own cage, one lie at a time. Over the next few weeks, things moved quickly. The police took our statements. The DA's office did press charges. My mother was arrested. The story became local news, a salacious little tale of a high society mother stealing from her own daughter. Her carefully curated image was not just shattered, it was incinerated. Her friends, the ones who had sat at her table at the wedding, all publicly disavowed her. They gave statements to the press about how shocked and horrified they were. They had been fooled by her charm just like everyone else. My father, I heard through the grapevine, had mortgaged their house to pay for her legal fees. He was standing by her, a loyal soldier to a disgraced queen. He had tried to call me a few more times, leaving desperate, rambling voicemails. I never listened to them. I just deleted them. The court proceedings for the trust were swift. With the overwhelming evidence, a judge granted the emergency order. The full control of my grandmother's trust was transferred to me. When I finally saw the complete statements, I learned that my mother's theft was even more extensive than Mark's initial check had revealed. The total was closer to $250,000, but the fund was still substantial. My grandmother had been very generous. It was enough to change our lives. Enough for a down payment on a house, enough to give us a cushion, a sense of security I had never known. One of the most healing conversations I had was with Sarah a few weeks after the wedding. She called me, her voice hesitant. "I just wanted to check in," she said. "I've been hearing all the news. It's crazy." "It is," I agreed. "But it's a good kind of crazy. It's the crazy of cleaning up a huge mess." "The whole family is talking," she said. "A few of the older aunts think you were too harsh, that you should have handled it privately. But everyone our age, all the cousins, we think you're a hero." Her words meant so much to me. A hero? I just didn't want my wedding ruined. "No, it's more than that," she insisted. "For years, we've all watched your mom walk all over you and walk all over your dad, and none of us knew what to do. You finally stood up to her. You showed everyone that she's not invincible. You broke the spell." Broke the spell. That's what it felt like. For my whole life, my mother had held a strange power over our family, a power built on guilt, obligation, and the threat of her disapproval. By exposing her, I had shown everyone that the Empress had no clothes. And she never had. Leo and I decided to go on our honeymoon. We went to a quiet beach, far away from everything. We turned off our phones. For 2 weeks, we swam, we read, we talked, and we just enjoyed being together. It was the start of our real marriage, a marriage founded not on a perfect day, but on a difficult truth. On our last night there, we were sitting on the balcony, watching the sunset. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked him. "How it all went down. Our wedding will forever be remembered as the day I had my own mother arrested." He turned to me and took my hand. "I don't regret a single thing," he said firmly. "Our wedding will be remembered as the day my wife took back her life. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." He was right. It wasn't a day of shame. It was a day of strength. When we came back, the legal process continued. My mother, facing a mountain of evidence, eventually took a plea deal. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison and 5 years of probation. She was also ordered to pay restitution, though my lawyer warned me we would likely never see a cent of it. Her assets were all tied up in legal fees and debt. My father sold their large house and moved into a small, rented apartment to be closer to the prison where she was sent. I heard from Aunt Carol that he was a broken man, aged a decade in a few months. He had lost his wife, his daughter, his home, and his reputation. He had paid the price for his silence. As for Julian, he disappeared. After the public humiliation at the wedding, he apparently left town. Jess heard from a friend of a friend that he had moved across the country, trying to escape the story that now followed him. He was no longer the charming man from a good family. He was the pathetic pawn in a failed plot. A year after the wedding, Leo and I bought our first home. We used the money from my grandmother's trust, the money she had always intended for me. As we unpacked boxes in our sunny new living room, I found the wedding album Maria had sent us. I flipped through the pages. There were pictures of the ceremony, of me and Leo saying our vows, our faces full of love and hope. Then there were pictures of the reception, the smiling guests, the toasts. There was even a picture someone had taken of the projector screen, displaying my mother's crimes for all to see. It wasn't the wedding album I had ever imagined, but it was ours. It told the story of the end of one chapter of my life and the beginning of a much better one. I closed the book and put it on the shelf. I didn't need to look at it anymore. I had lived it. I had survived it. And I had won. My mother had wanted to fix my mistake. But in the end, the only thing she had fixed was my lifelong problem of having her in my life. She had removed herself, and in doing so, had given me the greatest wedding gift of all: freedom. And a peace that was truly priceless. I no longer had to fight for my own happiness. I just had to live it every single day. And I did, with the man who had stood by my side and helped me light the match that burned the old world down. We built our new world from the ashes, and it was beautiful.